Hey everyone, how's it going? It's David from the Geek Garage podcast, and Geek Garage goes to the movies. I am greatly sorry. I'm not really sorry that I've been gone. No, I am sorry. And Ted, of course, he has been picking up the slack
such as it is.
Yeah. He's been picking up the slack the last couple of weeks. He's been doing episodes on his own, of course, and that's because I have been in between houses. I'm currently technically homeless, but don't worry, I'm not sleeping on any park benches or anything. I'm just in my in-laws.
He's got a leaf bed under a tree.
Right. That is sometimes more idealistic than my current situation. You know, my in-laws are great. I'm currently staying at my in-laws, and it is interesting to say the very least. But yeah, the recording situation here is a little less than
ideal.
Yeah. So I mean, it's currently where we're recording now, but you know,
it's not long-term tenable.
Right.
Yeah.
But good news is, if you've been keeping up with my social media stuff the last couple of days, I just landed a new job this past Wednesday, so I indeed will be working, so which also means that we will be able to afford the house that my wife and I purchased a couple months ago, and they've been working on building and stuff. So on July 19th, we will be closing on our new house, moving to Murfreesboro, and we'll have a awesome dedicated recording space where it'll be isolated and awesome, and it'll be fucking decorated and stuff. So we'll be able to go and record, and it'll just be a lot more professional. And I mean, the sound.
Okay.
I can't.
Right. The sound, maybe.
I can't speak to the actual
quality of the podcast.
The quality of the podcast.
Yeah. That's not going anywhere. So if you're liking it, you're wrong. Number one, but also,
I feel like
stick around because it ain't getting better.
I feel like the quality may increase a little bit over time, maybe, hopefully, but
buddy, I haven't increased in quality in 35 years. It ain't getting better now.
You know what? I'll just continue to be the optimist out of the two of us.
That's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, whatever.
But congrats on the new gig,
yes,
and on the new home.
Right, but
it's good to have you back in the fold.
Yes, it is. It is awesome to be back. But of course, that's not what we're here to talk about. Like I said, I just kind of wanted to bring it up as like, hey, this is why I haven't been present a whole lot lately. But like, good things are definitely on the horizon. So, blah 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 blah. Today we are actually talking about two movies. I believe they're both still in theaters, and they are Booksmart and Anna.
Yes.
Yes.
They have nothing in common with one another.
Absolutely nothing.
They just happen to be the last two movies that we saw together.
That is correct. That is the only thing they have in common as far as you and I go.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they both have female leads. I mean,
true.
Anna is female lead, and Booksmart is leads.
Right.
For the most part, I mean, like, you could say there's a more dominant character, but
we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. But anyways, so Booksmart, of course, is the directorial debut from the wonderful, amazing, beautiful Olivia Wilde. And Anna, the second movie, is helmed by the one and only Luc Besson.
Yeah. So, first one was Booksmart. We went and saw that in theaters. That was kind of on a whim. We saw the trailer for Anna in front of John Wick 3.
Yeah.
And we were like, this looks awesome. That trailer fucking lied to us.
It was
we'll
100% a lie.
It was terribly not accurate.
Right.
We'll get there.
We will get there. But yes, like we said, those are the two movies that we have in store for you guys as far as our discussion for this evening or this afternoon, this morning, whenever you decide to listen to this podcast. For us, it's this evening.
Yes.
Just another quick thing. We are, as of today, planning on attending a KaiCon, which is it's not a sister con to MTAC, but if you are familiar with MTAC, the Middle Tennessee Anime Convention that we went to back in April of this year, it is very similar. It is on a much smaller scale, much smaller attendance, but it's still an awesome convention. Same kind of people go to it. It has the same kind of panels and events and all that cool fun stuff. And we are attempting to come in a more official capacity than we did at MTAC.
Less guerrilla marketing, more professional people.
Which I'm not even mad about the way we went about or had to go about our guerrilla marketing with MTAC, because it was a great learning experience.
That also, but I feel like we had a pretty good response.
Yes.
Outside of a few bad eggs, as the saying goes, that were very rude and shall remain nameless, but you know who you are, dicks. Aside from those people, it was a very good. I'm a total introvert, and I was like, I'm a giant human being also. So I was like, I'm waiting for the police to be called because I'm basically terrifying.
Ted became my new fucking best friend after MTAC, because he was like, "Hey, you want a fucking button? Get your ass back over here and listen to our goddamn podcast."
I had some good singers. That weekend.
Oh,
I'm proud of some of those.
Yeah, what was that line you said to the dude in the Templar?
In the Knight Templar Crusader. I was like, hey man, so are you like pre-Crusades or post? Because if post, you're amazingly well adjusted. And I was like, in like 600 years, there's going to be this thing called a podcast. They're dope. Check them out.
Right.
Also, when you hear about America, that's our bad. Our bad.
And you just had like zingers, like one after another.
I was in rare form that weekend.
You were, but much appreciated, much welcomed.
Yeah.
And we're hoping, like I said, a more official capacity. We filled out the application to attend and have a booth. We're gonna have a table, and I kind of joked I'd like to have some sort of like sign that has our logo on it, or like a banner.
We're gonna do like The Office and just take a blank piece of paper,
right?
And then one of us is gonna have to leave like an hour into the convention to come home and get another one.
Pam, is this from The Office? No, I just grabbed it from the copier. Damn it, Pam, go grab the
good stuff.
Right. No. I
think that's July 26th to 28th.
Yeah,
I think
it's like
the end of July.
Very last weekend in July.
That is over at the Wilson County Convention Center.
The Wilson County Expo Center.
It's in Wilson County. Just Google AkaiCon.
Yeah.
AKAICON. You'll find it.
Yeah. If you're also familiar with the Wilson County Fairgrounds or Wilson County Fair, it is there.
Yeah,
that's where it's located. They have a new-ish expo center that they built the past. It was like 2-3 years ago.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Even if we don't get a booth, we'll be there in some capacity. Maybe guerrilla marketing again. So dress as a Templar. I'll use those same zingers on you.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's. Without further ado, let's get to it, shall we? Cool. So, Ted, did you show up to your high school graduation in crazy late fashion, driving a car onto a football field doing donuts?
No,
I didn't either.
Because
Especially
things like that only happen in movies.
Right. I didn't do that because mine was held at the Grand Ole Opry, so there was no football field to do donuts on.
Ours was actually held at the football field.
Really?
Yeah, but I didn't drive onto it.
Yeah, well, since we're pretentious a-holes and Catholics, and we got that private school money, we were able to have our stuff at things like that. But
I went to public school.
Yeah, I wish I did.
No, you don't. You think that.
No, because I would have gotten better grades if I went to public school.
That's a good point. You might
because you don't have to
college.
try as hard in public school. And I'm not generalizing here because I went to public school most of my life and then went to private school for high school. And let me tell you, I actually had to try, and I was insanely disappointed.
You know who else had to try?
I don't know.
The characters in the movie Booksmart, which is the whole point of this fucking podcast.
Yes, and an excellent segue into
Yes.
our first film. Yes, that is kind of what sent them on their journey, is the realization that they tried, and all these people that they went to school with didn't have to try and were still smart, and they still got to enjoy their youth or their high school youth.
Yeah, one of the lines. I think this is in the trailer. It's not really a spoiler because the trailer and the plot of the movie is pretty well readily apparent, as we discussed.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert.
Yeah, well, spoilers of course, but one of the lines, it's a back and forth between one of the main characters. She's like, you guys didn't care about school, and they're like, no, we didn't just care about school.
Right.
Like they had other interests, like typical like movie teenager stuff, like parties and whatnot.
Right. Yeah. Do you would you like to do the honors of going first? Overall thoughts and feelings?
Sure.
Or?
Yeah, I can do that.
Cool. Yeah.
So one of the big things that everybody said about this movie is that it's basically some combination or some version of it's this generation's Superbad, or it's like the female Superbad.
Right.
I think both of those are a little unfair.
I definitely have some notes which we'll get into it later on. But I have some notes on
one
that.
thing I think that is really reductive to what the movie is overall. I think it just tries to pigeonhole it into that. And while they definitely do hit some of the same beats, you might say, it's not really the same kind of movie. And also like all teen or coming of age movies kind of hit the same things. Like, I mean, if you look at this, Superbad, Fast Times, like they all have a lot of the same sort of similar jokes and similar beats and things like that.
Right.
So like I said, I think that's kind of reductive. I think that's kind of a cheap and easy thing to say because Superbad had such an impact. That movie came out in 2008, I think.
Yeah. Olivia Wilde, she actually, not to interrupt or cut in or anything, but Olivia Wilde, she said The Breakfast Club, Fast Times, Dazed and Confused, and Clueless, they were all inspirations for the film.
Right. And I think that's pretty apparent.
Yeah, and yeah, seems accurate.
Yeah. I thought the movie was hysterical in some parts. I was laughing a lot in some of it. I think it got funnier as it went on.
Yeah.
I thought parts of it were really eye-rolly. I was just like, oh my god, we're still making this, or this joke again. The joke where the one character kept just showing up randomly. I was like, this was really funny the first 3 times. We don't have to do it every 10 minutes, But overall, I think it was a fun movie. It didn't hit me like some of the other movies of this genre have, and I think it's because I'm not in that target demo anymore, so to speak. So it didn't resonate with me as much. Also because I was, obviously I'm not a woman, so I have no idea what that would be like to be in high school as
right.
What it'd be like to be like a 17-year-old girl. So I couldn't relate. That doesn't make it a bad movie, and that's not a criticism. It's just maybe I understand. It's just me understanding that, like, hey, this is not for you. So I because of that, it didn't resonate. So I don't feel like I enjoyed it as much as maybe some other people would. But I still thought it was a very strong movie
for sure. And while you don't need, while it definitely, you're right, it definitely has a lot of humor and anecdotal moments that are geared towards women. It is definitely relatable for both men and women.
Totally. And like I said, I don't want to just pigeonhole it as like, oh, it's like again, I think saying it's like a girl Superbad is dumb and reductive. Yeah. But there are definitely some moments. The one that jumps out at me the most is when the two main characters like get dressed to go out, and they have their like back and forth of like, oh my god, you're an angel, and like, who told you could be this beautiful? Like, that's funny. It's played for laughs and it is funny, but at the same time I was just like, is that like? It was kind of one of those like brain dead guy moments where I was like, do women do that? Like, you know what I mean? It just like, but still, it was funny. Like, again, that's not a criticism of the movie.
Sure.
That's just like, it didn't hit me the way like, to be that guy. Like, it didn't hit me the way Superbad did. But again, when Superbad came out, like, I was not that far removed from high school.
Right.
You know, again, I think part of the reason is I'm just older now. And I'm a little more removed, a little more detached from those experiences. So, but again, I still think it was a very good movie overall.
Yeah. I'll definitely echo not everything that you said, but a lot of what you said. I thought it was a solid freshman effort for Olivia Wilde.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, it's typically hit or miss with a lot of first-time directors, whether
especially for comedies.
Yes.
Because comedy is, I mean, all art is subjective.
It is
a
tricky.
Comedy is super subjective.
Yeah, it can be very difficult, especially today, and especially within the last couple of years with the ambiguity of what you can get away with versus what you could get away with, you know, like 10 years ago versus now is vastly different.
Right.
So
it's also ambiguity, but okay.
What did I say?
Ambiguity. That's okay. That's all right. It's your first podcast back. It's all right.
And I like to consider myself someone that has good grammar. I really shouldn't. No, I shouldn't. Anyways, so yeah, I thought it was really funny. I thought a lot of the humor was very character driven. Not to dive right into comparing it to Superbad or other like similar type of movies. A lot of the humor from similar movies to this has a lot of very funny situational moments where they get themselves into situations and that's funny. But I thought a good portion of the humor, the good humor in this movie was derived from the character interactions, the characters themselves, and the characters were just really fleshed out. Like, I have it in my notes extensively that the lesser known or the side characters, the supporting characters and roles were really funny and fleshed out.
I'm glad you mentioned that because with a few minor exceptions, and I mean like truly minor exceptions, like very small incidental characters, pretty much everyone was very close to approaching three-dimensional, if not outright three-dimensional.
Right.
They weren't just like, and a lot of like high school or coming-of-age movies fall into this, where they're just like, that's the jock, or that's the, straight-A student or whatever. Like, they were very fleshed out, so some of them more successfully than others.
Sure.
I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I definitely have more thoughts to come on the character and character development and the characters being three-dimensional and all that here shortly. I'll get through the rest of my general thoughts. I thought the cinematography was awesome. I don't want to be so weird or crass as to say, it had no place as looking so great for this kind of movie or this kind of comedy. Is basically like, having great cinematography for, I don't know, Superbad or Fast Times or something like that. But that's also reductive. I just thought that the cinematography was really great.
It's well
it was
shot.
A lot of fun.
It's well shot. Yeah.
The score, which I looked into it, and apparently it was composed by the DJ / producer Dan the Automator, who is from the Gorillaz and a bunch of other shit.
Yeah,
I didn't know that, but I do now, and it cool anecdote,
right?
Or factoid trivia bit about the movie. I mean, there was like a bunch of different like short transition musical bits in between scenes that just describes a transition. But yeah, you could tell like there was some it wasn't like a band, or they were like using samples from a band's music for like everyone that you would kind of associate with like a late 90s, early 2000s movie, like teen movie where you'd hear like No Doubt, as transition music, and then all of a sudden you'd hear like early Foo Fighters, and then you'd hear all whatever.
Yeah, and strangely, I think that's one of the only parts of the movie that don't root it to the late teens, the late 20 teens.
Right.
We talked about this after seeing it. Like a lot of the other, not a lot, but some of the other like coming of age type movies are a little more timeless in that they don't have those things necessarily that root them to like the mid 90s.
Yeah,
right?
and I definitely have that in my notes as well. How this is a bit more, I don't know if dated is the right word, but I guess contemporary.
Yeah. It is super contemporary, but I mean, it's going to be very rooted to
this generation.
2018, 2019.
Yeah.
Right. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, just that it's not going to be as like, it's not going to be necessarily as timeless as some of the other movies.
There's definitely a lot of like cultural references, and especially with like the lingo and some of the catchphrases that are really popular nowadays, and I'm not even going to try and remember and regurgitate them because I'll probably forget which ones were used and just sound like an asshole and an idiot, that one who can't remember, and two is clearly uncool.
Cool. Yeah, fellow cool kids.
Right.
But I mean, I agree with what you've said so far. I do have. I mean, I don't want it to be a total love fest. I did have some issues with the movie, unrelated to anything we've talked about so far, really.
You want to get into some of those?
We can. Did you have anything else you wanted to hit first?
That was pretty much. I mean, like I definitely, with everything that I said, I have sub points with all of that.
Okay.
So we can kind of just go through as we.
One of the things about it that did not work as well for me, it's very apparent in some aspects that it's a movie script by committee. I don't remember exactly how many writers were credited. Mm-hmm. If you want to try and pull that up, I think it was 3 or 4 maybe. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And it's really fairly typical in a lot of movies. But some of it, you can see kind of echoes of some things that were maybe in there that got excised, but not completely. One of the things that I thought was really...
4 writers.
4 writers. One of the things that I thought was kind of jarring is there's a scene where a couple of the characters show up to school, and they're like the quote-unquote rich, the 2 rich kids.
Sure.
And she's like, here come the 1%. I'm like, yo, you go to a school in Southern California, ostensibly. I was like, you ain't that far removed from that. And that just is strange to me, because for a movie that's so, and I don't mean this in a pejorative sense, but like so woke and so diverse in a lot of ways, like that was kind of a brain dead add-in. Like,
sure,
if you want to be intersectional, class is a part of that.
Yeah.
Not to be political, because again, I've said it before on the podcast, I'm not that guy and we're not that podcast, but it's just something that kind of was jarring to me. That said, I do think I say this as a, half white male. I do think it was very diverse when compared to a lot of other films, especially of this type. Mm-hmm. Which, your mileage may vary on what you think of that, but I thought it was cool. I thought that it was, I'm not going to sit here and be like, it's so brave that they did this, because that's dumb.
Right.
But I did think it offered a fresh perspective, so I thought that was cool. The overall story,
it's not anything new.
No, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I've watched the same Wuxia movie 400 times. You know what I mean? Like, that's not necessarily a knock on the film. It's definitely nothing new, but I think they do enough new, interesting things with it to make it
right. I mean, it's just like a reimagining of a Shakespeare film or a Shakespeare play, where like the 10 Things I Hate About You was a reimagining of The Taming and the Shrew, and what's another instance? There's several instances, like there's that was a reimagining of Othello.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I do think that for parts of this movie, it's just like, I don't want to say incoherent, but it's like, okay, now we have this scene, and that scene exists solely to get some more jokes out.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's not a critique of just solely this movie. Comedies especially have that problem where they're like, hey, we have this really funny joke or this really funny scene we want to shoot. How do we fit it in? Oh, fuck it, just throw it in there. But there are definitely some parts of that. And I think, again, that's part of where, like, the first screenwriter had this, and then they were like, the next one kind of changed it around or what have you.
Sure.
I wasn't there. I don't know that for a fact, but that's just kind of what it seems like. That said, again, I think it was a good movie.
Yeah.
You know, I had a lot of fun watching it, especially, like I said, the second half of it, I was laughing heartily.
Right.
You know,
I don't have a lot of bad stuff to say about it. I will say I wanted to be, of course, as objective as possible, and you know, analyze it as you know a good critic should. And this is actually something that both of us discussed on the ride home after seeing it. I thought that the teacher, the
Miss Fine.
Yeah,
That name is a little on the nose.
a little bit, but not really indicative of what the teacher is supposed to represent. She's supposed to be like the cool teacher, but the cool teacher that tries too hard, and wants to like desperately wants to be the cool teacher that like gets invited to parties.
Yeah, so, I mean, spoilers, she ends up at the same party as the two main characters. She reminded me, at first she reminded me in some ways of like the Robin Williams and Dead Poet Society character, who's like the inspirational teacher, you know?
Sure.
That definitely changed. And honestly, she was probably my favorite character in the movie. Her like,
really,
her monologue when she picks up the, I can't remember. I'm so bad with names. I can't remember the two main characters' names.
It was Amy and Molly, played by Caitlin Dever. I'm not sure, and Beanie Feldstein, respectively.
Right.
Amy is the more quote unquote quiet and reserved, and Molly's the more vivacious and outgoing.
The one played by Beanie, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Beanie.
It's Jonah Hill's sister. I did not know that until today. Yeah, I was looking it up, and
she. I was looking in trivia, and she actually originally read for a different character that ended up getting
got cut out. Yeah, and Olivia Wilde was like, "Nope, she's the one."
Right. Yeah.
And she's great.
Yeah. They're both.
They're both great in this. I think Miss Fine was my favorite character because when she picks them up and she gives that whole spiel. Spiel's not really the right word, but like her like monologue, I guess, where she's going off about like, I was like you guys, and then in my 20s shit got crazy. Yeah. She's like, I got banned from Jamba Juice. Do you know how many Jamba Juices there are? I don't know what about that was so funny, but her whole like speech there.
I don't know why I forgot about that because that monologue was great.
It was hysterical, and that's where she drops him off, and then she's just like fuck it and goes to the party too.
Right.
I think. Maybe she wasn't my favorite character overall, but that was probably my favorite scene.
Yeah, it was a good one.
So funny to me. Just her delivery on that line was great.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely good. I like I said, or kind of getting to or adding on to that, as far as like negatives for me. I didn't necessarily dislike that actress playing that role. I thought she did a fine job, but we were discussing this. I thought Olivia Wilde would have done a great job of playing that role as like her that kind of semi-traditional director small cameo in their own movie.
I'm kind of glad she didn't. Now that because I think she's a great actress and
I mean, it would have been a little bit longer of the traditional directorial cameo.
Yeah, I'm kind of over that whole thing. Mm-hmm. I think that it gets overdone a lot. That seems, for a long time, that seemed like that's the thing you do if you're.
Well, I mean,
if you're an indie director.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily something that I thought like she should do because it's her movie. It was more of like aside from her, totally separate from her being the director, I just went to her like mentally as like, oh, she would have been a good choice for playing that role.
I definitely agree though.
But hearing you explain more about what you liked about Miss Fine's character and that monologue in particular, and just her role overall, kind of reawakens my interest for that character as a whole. So yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily now think that it's all fine, but I mean, I have less problems with her character now.
Right.
But really, there wasn't a whole lot that I disliked about this movie. I think it just kind of hit a few more personal notes for me than it did for you, probably. Not a slight in any way, form, or fashion. Yeah. I think just the stuff that I've been through personally, it kind of hit a few things, and especially from like I'm definitely not calling myself a filmmaker because I'm not by definition, but you know, I've dedicated a significant amount of my life to photography and videography, and from that perspective of, you know, filming this kind of film, but in the fashion that they chose to do, kind of it struck a certain chord with me where I was like, oh, this is like, you know, a really fun experience and it's funny and stuff, you know, whatever. But yeah, anyway, like I was saying, with the movie just being funny, and thinking that the humor was very character driven. You know, we mentioned Amy and Molly, which are the main two characters.
The two leads, yeah.
And you know, they do a really good job of like bouncing stuff off of each other. I know you mentioned how you kind of you didn't find it annoying, but I forget exactly what you said. Like, do people really talk this way, or do girls really act this way?
Yeah, where they were like hyping one another up,
right?
About their outfits.
I think that's. I don't want to generalize, and I'm also not a woman, so I don't want to say that that's a woman thing. It could be, but it could also not be.
I was wondering if that, or maybe it was like a generational thing.
That's the
old.
Latter is what I'm going to lean towards, because that really seems like something that I feel, just with the new generation being a lot more accepting of, you know, of everything.
A lot more emotive, maybe.
Yeah. It seems like it's kind of done a 180 to the point where like it's the thing to do is to prop your friends up, and the fact that they are like overhyping each other, and talking about how great they both look like when they're getting ready to go out, and they're basically wearing the same thing, just with like different scarves.
Yeah, I think right. Oh, that was the thing. I think one has like a yellow ascot or scarf, and the other one.
And then the other has like a colorful belt or something. I don't know. They're basically in like blue coveralls.
Right. I thought that, like I said, I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't quote unquote get it, I guess.
Right. Another funny thing that I both in the movie and funny that you mentioned that it kind of got old for you, but I actually loved it, was the reoccurring bit with Gigi, played by Billie Lourd, when she pops up literally everywhere, that they make a pit stop in between point A being their house and point B being the final party at the end. I thought that was fucking hysterical. I don't know why it should have gotten old, and I completely understand that you felt like it got old after like the second or third time.
I just felt like it was a lazy joke,
right?
In a movie
and that's
in a movie that I think, for the most part, rose above that.
Right.
I just felt like that was a lazy joke.
Yeah, and I totally get where you're coming from when you say that, because it on paper it 100% makes sense, but in a movie with a lot of creative jokes, I was able to look past the fact that it could be a lazy joke and see it as its own like unique joke that transcending the lazy. I don't know where I'm.
Well,
going
to be
with
fair,
this.
you're also a lot more accepting of a lot of things like that than I am. Whereas I'm a hypercritical asshole
forgiving.
about
I think
is
or
forgiving maybe. Yeah, rather than accepting.
Yeah, but I thought I'd mention that real quick. One thing I also, since it sounds like you also looked at the movie trivia, Nick, the main crush for Molly, or well, she doesn't know that she's crushing on him until kind of like towards the end of the movie when she realizes it.
Yeah, at least it's not made known, I guess.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things where like the audience kind of sort of knows it and catches on a lot more quickly than
Again,
she
that's
does.
a pretty common trope.
Sure.
Right.
But I did not know that he is Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son.
I did not either.
Okay. Well, I figured you may have caught that since it seemed like you looked at a couple of the trivia factoids of the movie.
I tend to avoid... People who have heard this podcast before are going to be like, you're full of shit. But I tend to avoid a lot of like quote-unquote trivia because I don't find it that interesting or that relevant a lot of times.
Okay.
You know?
A lot of it you're true with a lot of it. Like, I'd say 80 to 85% of what I see in trivia most of the time is like, unless it's like a page or a website that's kind of dedicated to that kind of stuff, where they go out of their way to seek really interesting facts about behind the scenes stuff. It's just like, did you know that this actor in this movie went to Princeton? Who fucking gives a shit?
That's not super relevant.
Right?
Anything.
Yeah.
I mean, like the note about Beanie, is it Beanie Feldstein?
Yes, Beanie.
That being Jonah Hill's sister, I thought was interesting just because of all the super bad references that people were throwing around with regards to this movie. I just thought that was an odd coincidence.
Yeah.
I did not know that was Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son. He looks nothing like him.
Well,
At least from what I remember him in the movie. Now that you've said that, I could probably take another look at the actor and be like, holy shit, how did I not see it?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what happened to me, because I was wanting to make sure since I was kind of referencing a lot of the supporting actors, I wanted to make sure I had all of the characters' names and the actors who played them. And so when I was looking at Nick, who is played by Mason Gooding, I was like, Gooding, like related to Cuba Gooding Jr.? And so I looked at his headshot on IMDb, and I was like, he kind of looks like Cuba Gooding Jr. And then I scrolled real quickly through the IMDb trivia, and it said that he was or not the trivia, just his bio is that he said he was Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son. So yeah. Anyways. So, let's see. That's pretty much all I had about the characters. Like I said, I thought the cinematography was awesome. Kind of what sticks out in my mind, just a couple different things, like the slow motion shots, like inside the school with confetti, and like the dude riding the skateboard, using the fire extinguisher to propel him through the hallway. I thought that was a cool scene. That, I mean, it was like funny and something you'd kind of see in a movie like this, but the way it was shot was really cool. Yeah,
I dug the end credits a lot.
Yeah, with the water balloons.
Like every character getting a water balloon
right
in slow motion. I thought that was cool.
It was kind of reminiscent of Glee. You probably never watched Glee,
nope,
but
I don't even know what that is.
The show, Glee. Well, we'll just move on then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
No, but you're right though. It was a really cool like post or credits.
It was just something different. You know, it wasn't just like the credits on the screen. I just thought it was cool.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like I said, overall, I thought it was a really good movie. Well, maybe not a really good movie, but it was a really enjoyable movie.
Yeah.
Definitely great for a first time, directorial debut. I mean, it was a comedy and it was funny. What more do you want?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
A couple of final thoughts about it. It was, I believe, released or produced by Annapurna, which has not had a lot of success in terms of the box office.
Mm-hmm.
they've been really coy about how much this movie cost to make. I haven't seen any numbers about what it cost to finance this film. None.
Huh.
They've played it really close to the vest.
I can't imagine it cost them a whole lot.
Right. Like, I mean, it's not like a high budget movie. I mean, obviously movies are expensive to produce,
right.
But in terms of like overall budget, I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything. It's at about 21 million domestically, I think, at the box office, which is not bad for an independent movie, basically an independent movie this size, even with like big names attached.
Right. And there's quite a few.
Right there, and I mean, Olivia
most
Wilde's
of them are like
a pretty big name.
Right. Most of them
even
are
as a first-time director. You know?
Yeah, they're like not necessarily cameos, but they're definitely smaller roles that only
Jason
have a
Sudeikis.
Yeah,
is a pretty big name within comedy.
Yeah,
He's
Jason
kinda
Sudeikis. What's her name from Friends?
Lisa Kudrow. Will Forte?
Will Forte.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean their roles.
They're fairly big names within comedy.
They probably were able to film all their scenes in like one day.
Right. So I'm curious because there was a lot of when the first couple of weeks the movie was out, there was a lot of talk about like it's failing at the box office because I think it only did like 6 million or something in the first opening weekend, which is nothing really.
Well, I mean, it came out in the summer of Avengers Endgame and
John Wick 3 and
right.
Godzilla and so a lot of that was kind of the point I was getting at. I think it was released number one at the wrong time of the year. I kind of understand why they did it because it's about high school graduation, so it released right around the time most kids are graduating from high school. I get that. I think it would have been better served, and this is just my opinion, I think it would have been better served coming out either later in the summer once the quote-unquote summer blockbuster season is winding down.
Sure.
Or just at another time in general. But I'd be interested to see what kind of profit this movie turned if it did, because like I said, Annapurna last year especially like got killed. They lost a shitload of money. But
so that's basically did like the opposite of like A24.
Well, yeah, A24 is it's not really apples to apples, but that's just kind of for my own curiosity. Again, I think it's a good movie. It's definitely, I would definitely recommend people to see it.
Yeah, for sure. I think we did a pretty good job of not going into spoilers really at all with that movie.
Yeah, this one's not really
the kind of movie
It's not really the kind of movie you could spoil. Yeah,
right.
I mean, there's some plot points that I guess are kind of you could drop out to be spoilers, but they wouldn't really like. When I think of spoilers, I think of like. It spoils something about the story that you didn't know otherwise.
Right.
There's nothing in this movie that you could really say, like in terms of story, at least in my opinion, there's not really a story beat that I could give out or you could give out that if you've never seen the movie, you'd be like, well, fuck, I know how it ends. I don't care.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of true of comedies sort of in general.
Sure.
But I think that's also just kind of a sign of a good movie
right.
in a lot of ways. And this one, I mean, this character gets together with that character. Does that really affect your enjoyment of the movie? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that this is really a movie you could spoil. Now, other people have different opinions, of course.
Sure.
And tell me what an idiot I am on the Twitter machine, I'm sure.
Yeah. Fuck it.
But that's all I got about it.
Yeah.
I recommend seeing it. It was funny.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it as well. Like I said, I think it's still out in theaters. It's
probably coming up close to being not in theaters anymore.
Right.
But as of the time of us recording this, it was in theaters.
Right. So yeah, we can segue into Anna if you like. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and get this over.
Yeah. Unlike Booksmart, which I enjoyed, Anna was. I got thoughts, buddy.
Yeah. Well, since you went first with
yes, by all means, kick it off.
Booksmart, I'll go first, especially since I don't have as many thoughts as you do, or as you're.
I'm gonna go hard.
Yeah, I don't really have the feelings in the loins with the fire in my soul to attack this movie, but we do share basically the same.
Well, I think we have a lot of the
thoughts.
same similar complaints.
Yeah. So we were discussing this before we hit record. my overall thoughts and feelings is that I don't feel like it's a bad movie, but it's not a good movie. I don't know what that makes it then. It's just a movie. It's okay. Like in my opinion, it's not bad, but it doesn't really have any of the characteristics of a good movie either. And it's fine that you're not going to agree with that, but that's what makes this interesting, is that we don't share the same thoughts. So, but yeah, I thought that the few action scenes that it did have were okay. I thought that it had a decent cast, and the few big names that they had, like Cillian Murphy and
Killian.
Is it really Killian?
Yes.
Is it really?
It really is.
Because I've always heard Cillian Murphy.
Google it. Right now. Pause the podcast and Google it.
I'm not going to do any of that.
Okay.
What's her name?
Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren. How about a pregnant Helen Mirren in a bikini on the beach?
The most beautiful thing imaginable.
Wait, you are telling me that... Oh, okay. You were telling me that a pregnant Helen Mirren...
What is it, a pregnant septuagenarian?
is...
Look, Helen Mirren is an attractive lady for her age. Mm-hmm. But Dwight called that one correctly.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, she was also really great as the...
Olga, I think was her character's
yeah,
name.
and I forget what...
Super spy, KGB lady, basically.
Yeah, she was like the sub head of the KGB. She was like, it looked like second in command. I don't know how rankings works with the KGB.
She was some sort of leader within the KGB.
Right. She was definitely a higher up. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's... I don't know. I really don't know how to put this. I'll kind of...
He's going to punt over to me.
Yeah, what's the word that I'm looking for?
Defer.
Sure. I'll defer. Or when someone says they're going to cede my time to you.
Cede my time. Yeah.
Okay.
CDE. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cede. Okay.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
I'll let you take over. Go,
so
buddy.
I drafted this as a tweet and I didn't send it out because I wanted to save it for the podcast. But my immediate thought after watching this movie,
fuck this film.
No, I saved this. I wrote Anna, semicolon, or what if Nikita and Atomic Blonde had a love child that retained all the weaknesses of its parents and none of the good things? That would be this movie. I like a lot of Luc Besson's earlier work, like Nikita, like Leon, The Professional.
Right.
Even most of The Fifth Element I find enjoyable. His later work I am not a big fan of, and I really kind of hope this would be a return to form.
Sure.
It seemed kind of like he saw Atomic Blonde and was like, hey...
I can make this worse.
I made this movie 30 years ago and called it Nikita. I'm coming back to this. Oh, buddy, you shouldn't. You should have stayed the fuck at home. I agree with you. It does have a good cast. For the most part. Helen Mirren and Cillian Murphy both really, really try. Helen Mirren as Olga is inspired. She turns in a very good performance. To me, it seemed like there was a point where Cillian Murphy was like, I'm wasting my fucking time with this. And he went from really trying to just being like, yeah, I'm playing a CIA guy who's a super genius. I don't care, man. I'm just going to cash my check and go home. But hey, I get to film in Hawaii, so that's cool. Literally, I feel like there was a part where, I can't remember exactly what scene it was, but he went from like being really suave and trying really hard to just being like, you know, like just
right.
I'm just over it. One of my complaints about this movie that is not in relation to the script, which we'll come back to, or any of the characters or anything, there are so many instances where the characters have technology that wouldn't exist for years and years and years. How about there is Anna, not when we first meet her, but during one of the many flashbacks, which we'll come back to, she's basically...
I think time hops.
Sure.
I mean, so I guess they could be referred to as flashbacks, but I put it in my notes as...
flash forwards, time hops, whatever you want to call them. There's like 40 too many of them.
Yeah, yes, that is accurate.
Yeah, we'll circle back. Put a pin in that, listener.
Yep.
We'll come back to that.
Yep.
But there's an instance where she's basically just a step above being homeless and is a recovering drug addict, but she has a laptop in 1987 or 86 or something.
Because that's what you do.
Yeah, because that's shitty screenwriting, Luc Besson. Later in the movie, it's 1990. She has a USB stick, which wouldn't be invented for another 10 years. 10 years or so. Yeah, that's shitty writing, Luc Besson. Cell phones... They get service in 1990 underground. That's shitty writing, Luc Besson. You'll notice a trend. So yeah, the time hops. 6 months later, 3 months earlier, 3 years after, 3 years before. Pick a fucking year.
Right. Yeah.
You get one, maybe two if you're a good movie.
Right. Yeah. Like and it better goddamn take place in the first act of the movie.
Right.
Within the first 20 minutes of the movie.
You know how many there were in the first 20 minutes of this movie? Like 5.
Right. Yeah. We both audibly, God bless the two people that were sitting in front of us.
Who were enjoying themselves.
Right. They got up and they were like, good movie. Good movie.
Because the whole time, literally, there were several instances where I was just like, oh my God. And I just rubbed my forehead because I could feel the migraine.
We're ruining this movie for these two poor ladies.
And those women were just like, this is awesome.
Right.
We were just like, die.
Right. They're probably just on a date and, just having a good time, trying to enjoy themselves.
Having a girls' night.
Right.
And they had these two assholes behind them.
Right. This fucking movie. Can you believe all these time hops?
Ladies that were in front of us, I would like to apologize for ruining your movie experience. I would gladly reimburse you the cost of a ticket so that you could go see a movie worth paying to see.
Right.
The movie is not nearly as intelligent as it seems to think it is.
Really?
The action scenes, all 2 of them, were not terrible.
There's the restaurant scene where they set her up with the blank cartridge.
If you watch the trailer, you've seen 75% of the action of this movie.
This is true. The trailer was wildly misrepresentative.
The trailer made it look like an Atomic Blonde, John Wick style action movie, which I was all for because I was like, hell yes, crank it up, put it in my veins.
Yeah, whoever cut this trailer was like, I'm getting my fucking payday. I've seen this movie and it's garbage.
If I have to put up with this, the rest of you sad sacks do too. The trailer was awesome.
Yeah.
The soundtrack to the trailer was great. The way it was chopped up was dope. It was. I was hyped for this movie. We talked about it after seeing John Wick. I was like, that Anna movie looks awesome.
Yeah, I want to find
that Tad. I want to slap in the face. I want to go back in time, whatever day we saw this trailer, and I want to punch myself in the face.
Who else I want to slap in the face is that person who said it was like a female John Wick.
Yeah.
I want to.
I hate that person.
Yeah.
I hate that person. I have seen. And maybe innumerable action scenes that were better. These were competent. Don't get me wrong, they were not terrible, but it's just like, okay, you have to do something really, really good to impress me.
There was the restaurant scene, and then there was the montage.
That, and then when she's escaping the KGB headquarters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2.5, basically.
3 maybe.
But fresh off the heels of John Wick, we could say it's not fair to quickly analyze action movies after seeing John Wick because it's such an incredibly high caliber of an action movie.
Maybe that's fair because in the last since John Wick, okay, so leading up to John Wick 3, so basically since the start of May, I've watched all the John Wick movies probably 2 or 3 times each. I've watched the Raid series. So like maybe my action palette, if you will, is just so refined at this point where
Sure.
like I was just not gonna like this movie no matter what.
Yeah.
That may be a fair point. But it's just like, even Atomic Blonde, which I thought was overrated, I thought the action was good. Mm-hmm. You know, that one had too many twists, too. Probably too many twists to make it just this side of coherent. But this one shoots past that in like the first 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I was super disappointed in this movie in so many ways. I thought the trailer was super misleading. I cannot recommend seeing this movie. One of the things that we talked about leading up to us going to see it was like it's getting killed by the critics, but it had a really high viewer score,
right?
For like like on Rotten Tomatoes and some other sites.
The audience score,
yeah. Audience scores were really high, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't expect critics to fawn over it because it's just like an action movie or an action thriller.
Yeah, that's typically the way I go. It is like the lower scores kind of interest me, especially if it's like a low critic score but a really high audience score. Those movies tend to really interest me.
Right.
Not like I put a whole lot of stock into scores to begin with, but more so it's nowadays because I both of us, but me especially, have to be really picky with the movies that I go see because I don't have a lot of opportunities to go see movies. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing like, you know, wasting $15 on a movie that's a piece of shit.
Which we did because we saw.
Which we did. Yeah.
So, I don't really have that many good things to say about this movie, to be honest with you. It had way too many twists and turns. It's not nearly as intelligent as it thinks it is. It was barely coherent. Yeah. Most of the actors looked like they would have liked to have been anywhere else.
One of the things that I have down is something that you may have alluded to or kind of gotten into a little bit, is that the movie tries to be too many things at once, like too many genres. Yeah. Like it tries to be like an action movie, but doesn't have enough action. It tries to be like a spy romance type of combo, but missing important elements that those kinds of spy romance movies tend to have, like palpable romance or good spy and espionage. It like the whole part, which I think the overall plot summation, whole storyline, it kind of alludes to Anna going through this self-realization or self-actualization journey of like finally figuring out who she is and all that, because she was denied the life that she thought that she deserved, you know, growing up. And they could have went with that. I mean, they did go with that, and that could have been successful, except that they did a really shitty job of making anyone care about her character. Like they
or any of the characters.
Right. Like I cared about Cillian Murphy's character more than I did about her.
That's another weird... I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's another weird part. Like, he goes from being super spy, basically.
Right.
And then, like, for some reason, after he's found out who Anna is, he, like, falls in love with her. Out of nowhere. Like, it just switches from, like, now they're in Hawaii, and he's just like, I'm going to protect you, I made you a promise. And, like, I'm in love with you, basically. And I'm like, what the... Wait...
That
what?
All that I don't know if it was her second or third love interest of the movie, but it was completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like the movie it would have worked better if they didn't go in that direction.
Yes.
Like if they made that a strictly professional, quote unquote professional relationship, you know, as professional as a struggling KGB assassin,
right.
and a CIA operative person. I don't know. I forget what his title was. Working together as professional as that relationship can be. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just another dumb script choice because you did a shitty job writing this movie, Luc Besson.
maybe we should do him a solid and like fucking rewrite this for him. And
I don't know that it's salvageable. There might be a good movie in there somewhere that you could pull out all the shit and then put in some better not shit.
how about we just write a new movie and slap Anna as the title onto the script, and we'll just
cast everybody in this movie that was in
Right.
Anna and
Yeah.
be like, this is how it's done, you hack.
didn't he do Valerian, or was that someone else?
Yeah, well, his company did it. I think, I don't know if he directed it or not, but his company, Europa Entertainment, did it.
Yeah, because
They also did Lucy.
Yeah, I knew.
That's why I said, like, later period Besson, I don't, pretty much after 1995.
I know Lucy. It gets a bad rep, and the overwhelming response and opinion of Lucy is that it's not great from just a filmgoer's perspective, and from a scientific perspective, it is wildly inaccurate and
bad.
asinine and bad. But I don't care. I liked Lucy.
I mean,
I
everybody's
didn't
good.
love it, but
Right.
I liked it. It's another one of those like, hey, look, it's Morgan Freeman doing anything for money. But whatever. I mean, it's not Morgan Freeman in the Olympus Has Fallen or
The 15th Olympus Has Fallen movie
right,
for some reason that's happening.
Yes. This summer, Gerard Butler and Morgan Freeman.
And his dad chin.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say, and his dad. What's his name?
Nick Nolte.
Nick Nolte.
Nick Nolte.
Get off my lawn.
Who will do anything for money. Nick Nolte, you're somebody. Morgan Freeman, you don't have to do this. Are you being held against your will?
Right. Dial 9.
Blink twice, Morgan Freeman.
right,
Nick
blink-
Nolte.
Yeah, blink twice if you need help. That's pretty much all I had. Like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of
Yeah,
stuff
I
to
don't.
say.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore. It's too depressing.
We're just worked up
Yeah.
enough as it is. Yeah. Okay. Well, shit that doesn't suck.
Yes, let's get, for the love of God, let's get
Closing
into
segment.
something good.
Shit that doesn't suck.
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
yeah,
since
I'll go
you've
first.
been away.
So let's see. It's a TV show, not a movie, but it doesn't suck. It's Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I know it's been around for, I think it's in its maybe 6th or 7th season. I know it has at least 5, and so 6 may currently be airing. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's been recommended to me several times throughout the last couple years, since I pal around with some people that share the same TV interests, such as The Office and Parks and Rec and stuff, and they were like, if you like those shows, you'll really like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And I was like, I mean, I have never been a fan of cop shows in any form or fashion, even if they're comedies and whatever. But I have Spotify Premium, which also means that I have Hulu. So I was like, fuck it, it's free, I'll check it out. And within the first episode, I was hooked. I was like, this shit's hilarious, and it definitely helps to have your those clips on Facebook or Twitter or whatever that the roles of recaps of seasons and stuff, and the highlights and all that, who this bitch. But yeah, I just kind of been binging that a lot recently, and it is a lot of fun. I can't another thing you're doing too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so to get a actual film in there, just watched the documentary Three Identical Strangers, and I know we discussed this the other day. We didn't really get to discuss it in great length, and I, of course, won't go into a lot of detail here. I don't want to go into any spoilers or anything, especially for people who would want to go watch it. But it was awesome. It kind of gutted me to the point where I didn't really see it coming. I knew going in that it was a very unique documentary and that it would take a turn that would kind of be unexpected, but I did not expect that much of a turn. the snapshot of the documentary is that there's three twins, or three twins. Shit.
Triplets.
Too much whiskey. There are triplets who were separated at birth, and like I said, no spoilers, but they somehow find their way back to each other, and they start to go on like talk shows, and they kind of play up the whole humor of how they didn't know that they were all triplets, and now that they're when they first got to see each other for the first time, they were all like interacting like they've known each other for their entire lives, and how that was all fun. And now they're on talk shows and they're finishing each other's sentences, and they all have the same tastes in girls and music and cigarettes and stuff like that. It's weird to have them be like, what's your brand of cigarettes, because it's the fucking 70s and everyone smoked like a fucking chimney. But anyways, and it just takes a few turns that get pretty serious and dark, but I would not let that discourage you from watching it, because it is a little bit of an awakening in terms of, I guess, general psychology and what people were willing to do in the name of psychology in like the 50s and 60s, and how people back then didn't have much of a conscience, or not as much as they do now, when it comes to testing and test groups. So yeah, like I said, I highly recommend it. It was really good. So
Okay.
Your turn.
So if you've listened to the podcast before, you will have heard me talk about the Criterion channel.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that. It is definitely...
Next you're going to talk about Chinese cinema.
It's coming. It's coming. I like what I like, but the Criterion channel, I absolutely love it. I find something new on there to check out that I had not only never seen before, but probably had never even heard of before. This first movie I'm going to talk about is one of those. I don't remember how I first heard about this movie. Probably one of the people I follow on Twitter posted something about it, and I was like, that sounds cool. Oh shit, it's on the Criterion channel? Hell yeah, it is. It's called The Love Witch. It is from 2016, I believe, so it's fairly recent. It's not too old.
Isn't that the movie you told me it took you like a solid month to get through?
Yes, but that's not because it's a bad movie. That's just because I have like ADD badly.
Yeah.
And
Same.
I've been super busy the last couple of weeks. So it did take me a long time to get through, but that's not an indictment of the movie.
Both of us were job hunting at the same time, for different reasons, but...
Yeah. I've just been slammed. But
yes.
Anyway, it's by Anna Biller. She wrote and directed it, and also did a lot of the costumes and created a lot of the costumes and the sets and stuff. So she basically willed this movie into existence, which is super impressive. Not her first film. She's made some others that are also on the channel that I'll get around to. She is described as a quote-unquote feminist filmmaker. I don't know exactly what that means. That seems to be just a catch-all term. So if she's a feminist and she makes films, she's a feminist filmmaker by default.
Sure.
But that's how she's been described anyway. So The Love Witch, at least, is a horror comedy. It's kind of a throwback to that 60s style horror movie. So kind of campy, but it's done in a sort of a subversive way.
Okay.
It's not just like... you kind of have to watch it to understand what I mean by that. But if you've seen any of those 50s and 60s horror movies, you definitely know what I mean when I say they're really campy.
Yeah.
This is like that, but... it's not just blindly faithful to that. It's a very interesting movie. It's a very good movie. If you're into that, you'll definitely dig it. Like I said, it's on the Criterion channel, which I cannot recommend enough. This movie is fucking trippy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, really, really good though. It's some of it's super overacted, but again, that's that kind of throwback to that 60s camp.
Okay.
It's very bright. There's a lot of bright colors, like a 60s style movie would be.
Sure.
And it's in the title. It's about a love witch. It's very interesting. It's not really scary like you would think of a horror movie. But again, the 60s camp movies really weren't scary either. But
right.
Highly recommend it. Definitely check that out. I'm sure it's available on some other places as well. But That's where I saw it. It's on there for sure. Next, this is Chinese cinema, David. Thank you for spoiling it.
My bad.
Not any movie in particular, although I'm sure that, again, if you've ever either listened to the podcast or have spoken to me in real life, there's a very good chance that I have rambled on and on about some sort of Asian movie, particularly Chinese cinema. This is just a director of Wong Kar-wai. I've watched a few of his movies over the last month or so. In particular, Chungking Express and In the Mood for Love. Both of those are fucking phenomenal and highly recommended. They're very intimate, personal kind of movies. He does very... a lot of his movies are they're very much meditations on like life and love. I mean, In the Mood for Love, it's pretty much in the title. Chungking Express is a story told in 2 parts. The first half or so of the movie is about a relationship that's ending or that has ended and sort of the fallout from that. The second half is about a relationship that's just blossoming, that's just beginning. And then In the Mood for Love is a period piece. It's set in the early 60s, and it's about 2 neighbors who find out the husband of one neighbor is cheating with the wife of the other, and so they have a friendship that forms over that shared instance. Both very good. Those are probably his most well-known movies. They're on the Criterion channel. I think most of his filmography is on there, so I'm going to start working my way through that. But his films are just really beautiful, both in terms of like cinematography and shots, as well as like thematically. Spoiler alert for all the shit I talk about, like shoot that motherfucker in the face, like Hard Boiled or John Wick. Like I really love like intimate, like artistic movies, and super fan of his.
Find you a man that can do both.
Yes, exactly.
AKA find you a Ted.
Yeah, well,
or the Ted.
Yes, don't touch me.
This is not me trying to pimp out my friend Ted.
It sounds like that though. It does.
But you should definitely date Ted.
No, he's not that great. Trust me, I know. But yeah, I just I'm really into his films lately. I've been really getting into those, and then also I guess just to stay on brand, I watched a Wuxia movie. I don't remember the name of. I just found it. And I was like, play, and then I fell asleep.
Nice.
But yeah, so highly recommend those. All that I talked about. Really just cannot speak highly enough of the Criterion channel. Hopefully somebody there will hear this and then give me money or a free membership.
Right.
They shouldn't. I'm some moron on the podcast. They have real people that do movie stuff for them.
Sure.
But yeah, highly recommend all of that. Don't watch Anna. It's 90 minutes you won't get back.
Yeah, I can't really recommend it either.
It's just bad.
It's like I said, it's not great. So yeah, that's I think that's a great place to end on a shitty note.
So, like David said, we're going to try and make it to a Kai-Con here in a few weeks. Yep. We have some other stuff brewing in terms of appearances that we'll speak more on as the time approaches.
The main show, like I said, once I get moved into my new house, it should pick back up because I will have a place to invite guests to, which is kind of the main hindrance right now. Like right now I can have Ted over to my in-laws because it's just one guy and they know Ted and it just whatever, it works. But, you know, cycling a bunch of strangers out of my in-laws' house isn't necessarily a great idea or something that I want to do. It seems kind of a rude thing to do as a house guest, especially since they're putting us up for free. Right. But like I said, once we get moved into our new house, which is the third week in July, the regular Geek Garage show will pick back up. We'll be hopefully just as regular as our Goes to the Movies series, but definitely on par with the frequency. And
so we'll pick back up on that. Do you want to talk about maybe some of the episodes we planned, or do you want to just kind of play those?
What have we planned? I know. So what we talked about doing a comprehensive retro, or not retro, but just talking about QT's collective works. And
leading up to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right, which
that's coming up later. We'll probably have to. Man, that's gonna be tough because I think it releases the same weekend as AkaiCon.
Yeah,
I would rather go see this movie than go to AkaiCon. Sorry, AkaiCon. I've waited a long time for this movie.
I mean,
I guess we could do both. It's not that.
we could. It might be completely exhausting.
Yeah.
But we'll
take
just
a day off of work, but we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
We'll
just do cocaine that weekend.
Nope, we won't. That's one of the episodes we talked about. That might be a two-parter because this will be his 9th film. So if we're gonna do justice to some of the rest of them, we'll have to probably go.
Yeah, we might do it John Wick style, where we covered the first 2.
Yeah.
So we'll cover the.
Up to Kill Bill, and then from Kill Bill on, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that. I think that about splits it in half. So,
yeah.
Maybe something like that. Other than that, there's some other stuff coming up in not the far future necessarily, but further into the future than that.
The fall is looking pretty good.
Fall looks good.
We'll probably do a retro on it. Chapter 1 or. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was called Chapter 1. Maybe it was just called.
It was just called It, and then as I recall, in the end credits, it said The End or Chapter 1, The End, or something like that.
Right.
And then the second one is, of course, officially titled Chapter 2.
Yeah, I would definitely like to have to do a retro on Chapter 1, and then do an episode on Chapter 2. I'd love to have Shauna on here since she helped me out with the Halloween episode, or not Halloween, the horror movie episode, not last fall, but the previous fall. She is a huge horror movie buff.
Cool.
Listeners, if you have not listened to that episode, it is one of our most, in the lingo that we like to use is evergreen, meaning that you can listen to it anytime and it's timeless. Anyways, yeah.
Speaking of horror, we talked about doing one for Midsommar, and
is that how it's pronounced?
It is. That is how it's pronounced. Wow. And retrospective on Hereditary. I am not super into the idea of watching Hereditary again, but I will do it for you, listeners.
Yeah. We definitely discussed, the doing it, because we feel like it's quote unquote necessary.
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on Hereditary. I think a rewatch would be good to really solidify those. But I am excited for Midsommar.
Yeah.
That movie looks really, really out there.
Fucked up.
Yeah.
There's no doubt I am ready to be hurt again.
Yeah, I accidentally stumbled upon some semi-spoilers for that movie. And if there's any truth to them, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. So, but like I said, there's some other stuff coming up in the fall.
Yeah, next week is going to be a good week for movies. I know that you're not pumped for Spider-Man.
Couldn't care less.
But I am, but there's also Midsommar, which I thought was just Midsummer.
It's Midsommar.
Cool. Well, here I am again, looking like
ambiguity.
I really appreciate you bringing that one.
That's what I do,
back.
baby.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Well, this is a good place to stop this bitch.
Yeah.
Like always, you can find us on geekgaragepodcast.com, on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. If there's another platform out there that you would like to see us on, I keep on forgetting to mention that we are now on YouTube.
Somewhat.
What did you say?
Somewhat.
Yeah. What he's referring to is basically just a screenshot of, or just a still logo. For the duration, there's really no video to any of our podcasts since we haven't done any video for our episodes thus far. But we're definitely getting there. It's a plan for the near future. So yeah, we're now on YouTube. So if you are a YouTube person, please feel free to go out and subscribe to our channel, or just subscribe anyway, so we can get our numbers up. Yay!
So we can tell people we're cooler than we are.
Right, and we can start monetizing and all that. I'm not sure if that has if subscribers have anything to do with your ability to monetize, but Yeah, but do all that fun
Yeah.
stuff.
We're
Like
on,
our pages and follow us on the social medias and all that.
At Geek Garage Pod on Twitter.
Yep.
Geek Garage Podcast on Instagram, right?
Yes.
And then
That is
search
correct.
Geek Garage on Facebook.
Yep.
You can find me, not that you should want to, but you can find me at Ted is on Fire on Twitter and Instagram, where I am not that active or that cool. But yeah, come say hi to the podcast and tell all your friends, and then immediately regret telling all your friends. So,
Because that's the way it goes.
that's the way it goes.
All right, everyone, be kind, stay geeky, eat lots of cheesecake. Goodbye.